What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Martian and Ozzy podcast. This week, we are back to talk about the UFC Sao Paulo card going down this weekend from Sao Paulo, Brazil. 13 fights. First Brazilian fight night in, I believe, 3.5 years since that first event that shut down the world. Kevin Lee versus Charles Oliveira. I'm pretty sure we haven't had a fight night. We had UFC 283, the pay per view in Brazil, but we're back with the Brazilian fight night. And joined by my co-host, as always, Ozzy. How we doing this week, my man?
Yep, we're back here. There's I believe a Brazilian fighter in every fight, which I love. And getting back to these international events and at the top billing, your favorite fighter, Derrick Lewis. Love a Derrick Lewis main event. I actually prefer it was who was it? Who is he in for in short notice? It was
Curtis Blade.
Blades, right? Yes, I was actually excited to see that fight, but yeah, that was a long time. Like Blades pulled out a long time ago, so it feels like so. I wonder what's wrong with him, but yeah. So it's a okay card. I don't think I'm actually gonna catch this one live personally, but yeah, let's see what we can make of it. For this week.
That's a good way to describe it. Just an okay card. A lot of favorable matchups for the Brazilians, but I'm excited. I think the Brazilian crowd will always bring a good atmosphere. And we're coming off a week with no UFC. We're coming off of Francis Ngannou cementing himself as the best heavyweight to ever fight in boxing. And what did you do last week besides watch the Francis Fury fight?
I had a bunch of brunches and I had obviously Halloween this week or it was yeah, I had a Halloween party. I had two Halloween parties last Saturday. I was a pirate. Arr. But yeah, it was good. I had a fucking great time, dude. New York for Halloween is honestly pretty sweet, dude. It's pretty sick,
You
honestly.
had another one on Thanksgiving, didn't you?
On Thanksgiving. What do you mean?
On Halloween, didn't you?
Yeah, I had a good festive between like Friday to Halloween was on
Tuesday.
Tuesday, right? To
Yeah,
Tuesday, yeah, it was pretty fun. I had a good time.
solid. Yeah, good to get the bad taste out of our mouths from the last card. Bad event for me. Lost every bet. Clean sweep.
Mm,
Victor Henry pushed. But overall, I don't think the bets were atrocious. Some got unlucky, some got close. A lot of plus 200 underdogs that got close and lost. So we pick up the pieces and move on. Ain't no thing.
yeah,
Any
yeah.
thoughts? Recapping thoughts?
Um, yeah, I mean, in terms of money line plays, didn't go very well for me. I mean, the average odds for all my money line plays is like over 200 plus 200. But between Bruno Silva, Giu Frey, Abu, and Kamaru, I mean, most of those bets are pretty. I would say pretty good value, especially Giu Frey and freaking Abu. I thought the decision was fair. I was like, it's not a robbery. Abu could have done a little bit more, but I had him by decision at like plus 650. I had the goes the distance and the over, so I still won on that fight. But yeah, just a little less than 3 units down for me. Most of that came on the money lines, but did pretty good on the prop side of things. And I would have probably just tilted it a little bit more, but it was not that bad of an event. It was, one took a few of those dog shots. If we get even one of those between Abu, Bruno, and Kamaru, I think I'm up or even on the night. So not to, or actually only lost 2 units. My bad. But yeah, so yeah, solid. It is what it is.
The only closing thought I have is I can't wait for Sean Strickland to eat Khamzat Chimaev's breakfast, lunch,
Yeah.
and dinner in the next fight. That's the one I'm looking forward to. But enough about last week. 2 weeks ago,
Middleweight best division still. So
reigns supreme. A lot of middleweight fights on this card, so we're gonna be getting into those soon. But we're starting things off in the first fight of the night in the lightweight division. We have a debutant here. Coway Fernandez taking on Diakese. Odds for this one: Diakese favored minus 186. Fernandez plus 161. Two-way action coming in on this fight. The recent action coming in on Diakese, and I agree with it. I was taking part of that action minus 123. Was fortunate to jump in at a really good time on Diakese. I mean, I just don't think Fernandez is any good. I think his striking is very, mechanical and not very good, and his takedown defense is abysmal. And I think that Diakese really should have an easy path to hit takedowns to keep the takedowns here because Fernandez goes full guard. He throws up arm bars off his back. He doesn't really have a good system on getting back up to his feet after getting taken down. And we know we've seen Diakese recently master of lay and pray. He takes you get down. He doesn't let you get back up. It might not be exciting, but it wins fights, and that's what I'm relying on him to do here. So I like Diakese here. Got in on a good number. Where it's at now seems more accurate to me. Any thoughts from you here?
I echo a lot of those. This is it was a collab play between myself and my good friend Pepe, fellow New Yorker. And yeah, I mean, I just like, Mark in this situation, veteran fighter. I think he's got like 14 or 15 fights in the UFC overall. Maybe I'm underselling him, but it's somewhere around there. That's like double the amount of fights Cal has overall ever. And he hasn't been very active. Obviously the guy has some skills. It looks like he's trained for a long time, right? So he has some kickboxing, jujitsu, all those kinds of things, and obviously is a Brazil a fight in his home country. But Mark is pretty experienced. He's fought all over the world. He's trained all over the world. He's fought really good kickboxers like what's his name, Faziev. He's fought grapplers like Joel Alvarez, like he fought last time. And I just feel that he has the ability to win in every facet of the fight of the fight. And I just didn't like how Fernandez I saw in some of his fights, especially in that one loss that he had, where the second round it looked like he had like no will to win
Mm,
left. Like I don't know
yeah,
if it was
he
he
gassed out.
because yeah, he just gassed, but even when you gas, it's like I just could tell that he just wanted to make it to the final bell, and maybe if he could catch like a little submission here or there, he'd be happy with it. I don't know if this guy's really, a fighter. And I just feel that you either gotta be, you have to be pretty solid, in my opinion, to beat Mark Diakese. And yeah, so I like him I still like him even at it was like minus 180. I think it should be like a minus 200 number. But we'll see. Hopefully Cal hasn't been, in the hyperbolic time chamber or took a sensu bean or something. Because that would be, I'd be pretty pissed. But yeah, I think Mark should win, and I have it multiple units. Have him for multiple units.
Nice 1.5 unit play for me, and that's going to move us along to the women's strawweight division next. Monstrat Ruiz making a quick turnaround here, taking on Eduarda Moura, making her UFC debut. Odds for this one have Moura minus 625 to Ruiz plus 450. Any thoughts on this women's fight?
Not too much for Mora. There wasn't too much tape available. I think she probably has the advantage in a lot of the areas of the fight. Obviously, Ruiz has she's like a weird fighter. It's not like you could, I don't really think you could really predict. I mean, you can't predict what she's going to do, but you can't really predict like how well it's going to work, like girl to girl. Like it'll just depend. But it's not, not a fight that I really want to have any action on whatsoever. I'll pick her to win though.
Yeah, I mean, Mora's tape available consists of her immediately taking down women, the women having no chance to get up, and she submits them. So we haven't seen any adversity from her. And I don't think Ruiz is the one to put it up because we've just seen her get taken down over and over and dominated by Amarin. Obviously Jacqueline's more proven, but I think the game plan is kind of there. She looked hopeless in that fight, was getting taken down instantly. Mora definitely not as credentialed of a jiu-jitsu fighter as Amarin, but I still think she'll be able to get her down easily. I guess it could get interesting if Mora isn't able to submit her in round one, but she probably can just take her down in multiple rounds and win. So no interest in this one for me. The under is juiced in a women's fight, minus 160. No interest in that. So I really don't see any way you can bet on the fight. Maybe more a submission round one or something like that if she just makes easy work of it. But I'm sure the odds on that aren't very good. Let's see. You know what? Not even gonna search for it. Enough about that one. We're moving on to another fight, an amazing fight in the women's strawweight division. How dare the UFC put Angela Hill as the third fight on the prelims? I mean, Coming off a main event, they're putting her on the third fight on a Brazilian prelims. Just the disrespect towards one of the greatest women's fighters ever, Angela Hill, taking on Denise Gomes here. Odds to this one, Gomes favored -144, Angie Hill +124. We've seen this before, guys. We saw it really recently. We saw a woman come into the UFC, have a good performance or two, and then she's favored over Angela Hill in a fight. And that went really badly for Emily Ducati. And I think it's probably going to go badly for Denise Gomes as well. I think Gomes, has some potential. She can hit some takedowns. She is a little bit powerful on the feet, obviously blasted that Mexican woman, Yaragui, in her last fight, just knocked her out instantly. But I think if the fight gets extended and we see, a kickboxing fight, we see some clinches, I think Angie Hill's going to take over. And I think that's evident by the Loma Lookboonmee fight. You just saw that the longer a striking fight gets extended, you see the Gomes technique kind of wears. She relies a lot on raw power and athleticism. And, women with better technique can, use that against her. And I think that's going to be evident very much so in this fight. Angie Hill, once just a few years ago, beat Loma in that same type of fight. She got her in a striking fight. She was just a more experienced MMA striker and clincher, and that's what won her that fight. And I think that's what's going to win her this fight here against Denise. So I got Angie Hill by decision. I think this line should probably be flipped, and I think the American is going into Brazil and getting her hand raised here.
Yeah, interesting matchup here. I told you Angie Hill had no shot against Mackenzie Dern, and she got beat up there. So I hope that beating did not too negatively affect her. But I also have a play on Angie Hill here. Just when you look at Denise Gomes, her last two fights were even against Loma as well. All those fights are against very inexperienced women, right? Bruna Brazil, I don't know how many fights she has, but it's like under 10. Same thing with Yaraguri and same thing with Loma. So she fought three very inexperienced girls, and now she's going on like the other end of the spectrum. With Angela Hill, I think she might have fought every strawweight they've ever had on the roster. Damn close. I don't know who. Someone needs to keep those records so you could easily access them. Like who has the most fights in this weight class and that weight, and things like that, or like who has the most wins over current active whatever UFC fighters. It wouldn't be Angie Hill because she loses. She loses a lot, but she doesn't
Definitely
usually
fight.
lose. Yeah, she usually doesn't lose to the prospects. And the thing with Denise Gomes is she's just a little wide and kind of like a little sloppy with the strikes. Like she's kind of like throwing like these big hooks and stuff like that. And her footwork is very linear. Excuse me. So I think Angie Hill should be able to move around quite a bit. She's gonna be in the big cage, which I think a lot of her fights recently have been at the apex. So I think she should be able to avoid, move around a little bit. Hopefully she doesn't get screwed by the judges. It's always a possibility in an Angela Hill fight because she doesn't hit too hard. But I like her in this fight. I think she should be able to use her kicks, her straight punches, and eventually, like you said, maybe get into that clinch and find a way to wear down Denise Gomes, even maybe hit a trip takedowns because Denise Gomes, even when she's grappling, like she won't secure position often. Like she'll go for the submission, she'll fall off of you, and all these kinds of things. So, and she's still very young. Like I think she's only like 22, 23. So if she makes a crazy jump or something like that, like she looks good, I wouldn't be surprised. But I think vet lesson right here, vet lesson time. So let's take that plus money and ride that on the prelims.
Sounds good. Same page there. We're moving up to the light heavyweight division. Vitor Petrino taking on Modestas in this fight. We have the line Petrino -245, Bukauskas +210. Some action came in on Modestas, and there's some buyback lately on Petrino. What are you thinking about this light heavyweight fight?
Yeah, so I saw in the last like 2 days, this line's gone up maybe around 40, 50 cents, and I kind of get it. But this is another fight where you have a guy in Petrino who he has impressed in the UFC, but I think still, you kind of have to be wary in regards to him coming up against a guy who maybe looks to pick at his weaknesses a little bit more or is a little bit more composed. Than like Pacquiao, he's just not like he's like a defeated, like I feel like he gets defeated very easily. Like he's another guy, like he loses his will to win, a bit. And I felt like that was the case in that fight. Bukauskas, he's pretty well rounded. He's got 5 round experience in Cage Warriors. He's not totally clueless on the ground, but he just doesn't really press too much of the fight. But he's got that karate, like, kind of background. So I think we might see these guys at range a little bit. Bukauskas, moving around, skirting the cage a little bit. So I'll be curious to see how quickly Petrino does go for the takedown. I think in a few of his past fights, he didn't exactly go for it too early. But I think he might have a hard time landing the kind of strikes that he wants early on in the fight. So I'm interested to see his his approach and his strategy. But I do like this fight a little bit to go over. So I played it. I played the over and the goes the distance. The goes the distance is actually a pretty good price. It was like plus 150. Let me look at what you can get now. Still plus 145. You could get it on in some places. So I just feel that the fight could develop a little bit slower. And Bukauskas has solid cardio, so I don't think like a round three, like I don't think him tiring and Petrino easily submitting him in the third round and stuff like that is that live. And just getting that plus money shot, I usually like to find one like a goes the distance every fight card that is a little bit of a tasty plus money. But yeah, I think that's a solid play, and I'll probably add in Petrino by this. I'll try to find a good Petrino by decision line. But yeah, I'm going with that.
Yeah, I think that's a decent angle because I don't rate Modestus's chances of finishing very high at all. They're big guys, but like you said, he doesn't really pour it on. He doesn't really push a pace. I would be pretty surprised to see Modestus finish the fight. So I think if anyone's finishing, it's going to be have to be Petrino. And I just think that based on the line, the over line, it's just being a little too valued. So I think that the over is probably the way to go here. Also, the GTD at plus 145 on some books, you might as well add some of that if you're taking the over. And I think, Petrino in his last fight, I was looking to bet against him, but I think that he's impressed me actually his past two fights. And I've been wrong. So I think that I've learned my lesson. This guy is an insane athlete. I mean, he's only 25, 26 years old, looks like an A plus athlete. And it seems like he's just going to use that athleticism to kind of, cheat his way to some of these victories. And I think this is going to be another one of those fights. If it stays in the feet, I do think Modestus is the more, technical of the two. But I think Vitor and the light heavyweight division in general is something where like technique doesn't matter as much. And I think Vitor is going to Haas his way, maybe, just muscle his way to a takedown. I think he will be looking to hit the takedowns here. He's done that in both of his fights so far. It's been successful for him, and I just think with Modestus being, that, kinda karate background, I think the big cage might give Vitor some problems. He's gonna look to explode, close distance, get a takedown, and I think he will hit those takedowns. So, I think Petrino is gonna grapple his way to a victory here. The sub line at plus 450, he is coming off of is that his first sub? Maybe, I think. Yeah, first sub of his career in the last fight against Prachnio. But I think the guys look like more than a capable grappler, and I don't think he'll have too much trouble winning the fight. So I think Petrino will win here. I actually parlayed him with another fight coming up soon. I'll talk about. And we're going to move on to the bantamweight division next. Daniel Marcos taking on Victor Hugo. Odds for this one: Marcos minus 241, Silva or Hugo Silva plus 206. No real concrete thoughts on this one. Hugo, I don't think is any good. That knee bar he got in the contender series was some weak stuff. That other guy should be ashamed of himself. And I just don't think this guy is really any good. So I guess Marcos should win the fight, but I don't really have a concrete opinion on it. I don't think Marcos is proven enough to be laying this 70%. So I don't see a betting angle for the fight. I'll pick Marcos by decision as my pick.
Um, yeah, interesting fight here. I just feel that Marcos is, in my opinion, a low like I like kind of like his fight style overall. I feel like he's a little bit low variance. He picks good strikes. I feel he's got solid cardio. A pretty solid amount of fights. I think he's like 15. Is he 15 and 0, 16 and 0, something like that. Um, but yeah, I don't think that he's like a total noob in terms of the ground game. Basically, he's fought a similar guy to this in Simon. And Simon, I feel he I'm not gonna say he's definitely better than Hugo, but Hugo to me, like if he's failing grappling, I feel like Marcos could start really digging to the body and kind of really beating him up there. And I just feel that he's gonna be able to pick at Hugo, defend some of the grappling attempts that he makes early on, and potentially maybe look get a late finish here. Honestly, is what I'm thinking. But I could see some people saying that or feeling, hey, this fight is gonna be closer than you think because Hugo is very experienced. He kind of goes for it, and he fights to his strengths, in my opinion. So, but I just think it's gonna be hard for him to get Marcos out of his element, and so with that being said, I'm picking Marcos, and I might take a little shot on him by a KO or inside the distance.
Line on that though, no good.
Yeah,
No,
I didn't even look at it, but
175 on KO. But
plus
I understand.
175. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think that what you brought up about digging at the body is pretty good, and I
I mean,
think
Marco. Yeah. Go ahead,
Hugo
go ahead.
looked to be slowing down. I think on the
That's
Contender
what I'm
Series.
saying. Marco's just I feel like he's a guy that he just has really good vision. Like he's kind of locked in and I fighting Davy Grant, that Davy Grant fight, although I know people are upset about it, I feel like I didn't consider it a robbery, honestly. But I just felt that he stayed really composed in that fight. And Davy Grant was, throwing a lot of stuff at him and he kind of weathered and he did his thing. He might have not overwhelmed or did, too great in that spot. But I feel like he's gonna get a lot of UFC wins. But we'll see.
All right, enough about that one. We're going to move on to the welterweight division now. Renat-Fakhretdinov taking on Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. Odds for this one have Renat as the favorite, minus 350. Zaleski plus 285. Big steam on Renat in this one. What are you thinking about this welterweight fight?
Yeah, Renat, I like, I like this guy. I think he was, I don't know if he was the guy that they were looking to sign him a bunch of times and then we got him in the UFC, but I was big on him against Kevin Lee. I definitely felt that he was a side there. This fight here, I feel like there is a little bit more variance in it just because of the skill set that Zaleski brings. Right, he's got like spinning back kicks, he's got some jujitsu, he's got some takedowns, he's got his takedown defense is probably not the best, I would say, but his striking I think is solid. So he's a little bit up there in age, but I do rate him as a fighter. I do think he is a very good fighter. So I'm not really in the business of laying juice in situations like that, especially when he still hasn't really like smashed up an experienced guy, right? Like even though Kevin Lee's completely shot. So like what was the guy he beat before? Brian Battle.
Battle.
Like Brian Battle is very inexperienced and he kind of did not give himself much opportunity to win. Whereas I feel like Zaleski, I think he's gonna come in with a good game plan. I could see this fight being a bit close early on. But he just pushes a great pace. And I think that he's gonna be fighting on the front foot. But like I said, Zaleski's got that capoeira style. Like he's okay with like inviting you kind of like to getting close on him and like take space. And he's just very solid. So I was honestly thinking this fight might play out to go a little bit longer. So I was thinking about maybe the over that goes the distance, but I don't really like laying down minus 120. So maybe I'll look at like a cheat like a starts round three prop when those props start dropping because I just feel that Zaleski's gonna be able to definitely defend himself, dude. Like you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
and then eventually look for his opportunity to strike. So yeah, I'm interested in this fight though. It should be a good one.
Yeah, I think what you just said, it was good looking to maybe play the over. I think, Renat definitely has to be his finishing ability has to be getting overrated a little bit just by, rocking and finishing Kevin Lee in 60 seconds. I think looking at his career, he does, look to get the takedowns and secure position. And I don't think he's like a super tenacious top player once he gets those takedowns. So I think maybe looking to get like an overcorrection on the over here is a good angle. But I believe Renat should win the fight. He is the second leg of the parlay I got. When he was minus two something, 250. Zaleski, like you
Oh,
said, very good fighter. I mean, no doubt about it. Quality fighter, had a great career. But he's definitely getting up there in years now. And I think this is just a really tough fight for him to win because I think if you're going to fight and win against Renat, I think you either have to catch him and knock him out cold, which I see a pretty low chance of happening. Or you have to be a guy who is going to be able to stuff takedowns and get up from takedowns and push a pace and, really dig into that cardio of Renat. And I just think that Zaleski's a little bit too past it to be doing that. Maybe 4 years ago, 2019, I think he could have given him a good fight. But now I think it's a little bit too past it for Zaleski. But, where it's at now, 350, I think that that's maybe getting to where accurate. I definitely don't think I would recommend parlaying Renat at this price. But under 300, I think is good. And I just think this guy's a fucking wrecking ball, man. I think it's going to be tough to stop this guy. And I think he's going to be, top 15 at some point. And he's really, coming into his own right now at 32. Just a few fights into his UFC career. You mentioned Brian Battle. I think that win is aging, pretty damn well, man. I think he's definitely the cleanest guy to ever beat Battle, and I think that win is looking good. So, um, I'm going with Renat here, and I think it's going to be by decision. I think you're onto something about Zaleski defending himself. I think Renat's going to get the takedowns, play it safe, and win just by grinding out top position here. So that's going to move us along to the last fight on the prelims. A short notice fight thrown together here last minute was supposed to be the best fight on the card. Elvis Brenner versus Esteban Ribovics. It's unfortunately canceled. We're now getting Elvis Brenner taking on Kanan Kruchevsky. Kruchevsky, have you ever heard of a Brazilian with an Eastern European name like Kruchevsky? I certainly haven't. So this is a little suspicious to me. Great point brought up by Ozzy, though. Great point. It's tough to get a Brazilian visa. They couldn't get any Americans or anybody else. They had to get a Brazilian to fight, and this is a 165 catchweight fight. So Kenyan typically fights at 155. He obviously was nowhere close to being able to make 155. He negotiated for 165 here, so that's something to consider. You got to wonder why. How good a shape is he even in if he had to negotiate for that weight? But get into the line here. It's minus 210 for Brenner. Kenyan plus 180. Kenyan doesn't look terrible. He can mix in both things well. He's got some decent offensive striking, has knocked some people out. He's got some decent offensive wrestling, has taken down some guys and submitted them. I think he's, okay overall, but I just don't think that he provides any super specific threat to Brenner here. I think Brenner, um, just based on cardio alone, we know this guy has good cardio. We know that he can go pretty hard for the full 3 rounds. He can gut and grind out some wins. We've seen him be a huge underdog, literally 2 fights in a row where he's a plus 500 underdog and he won outright both times. He's probably got the highest ROI of any fighter ever, cashing at 500% ROI back to back times. But he's getting favored here now. I think the line where it's at is pretty accurate. Don't have a solid read on Kenyan, so no recommended bets for me here. Obviously, I think people think that Brenner round 2, round 3 seems to be the angle to play this one, but the odds aren't even out for that yet. So who the hell knows? So, any thoughts for you here?
Yes, I mean, I know I'm well aware of this fight. I like Ribovics a lot in the matchup, so I was very disappointing, to see. But overall, I just feel that this guy is gonna come out and he's just gonna these guys are gonna go to war. So the under is heavily juiced. Um, but Brenner, he kind of gets hit. He's pretty hittable. So, this guy's at 165. He's a little bit bigger. He's carrying, the weight. He's not, doesn't have to cut the weight. So, I feel like Brenner, hopefully, in the last fight against Guram, he was very willing to eat shots. So I don't know. Like it looks like his durability is good. So it might not
Well,
be an
he
issue
got
for
hurt
him.
enough too, though.
He
Remember?
got hurt, yeah, he got hurt in the fight. So, what I'm saying is I think this guy's got a bit of power overall. In some of his fights where he was in shape, I did think that he was kind of like he had decent cardio as well. But there's just too much variance in this fight for me to want to play it. Um, I do feel Brenner could probably finish him late, but it's just not like a good price like for you to get. It's like I'm just not like really interested in this fight at all. But maybe you could, if you want to go contrarian and say, hey, I don't know if this Keenan has ever been finished, but maybe going and saying, hey, no, this fight is actually gonna go over, 2.5, because Brenner isn't very potent finishing. Like all his finishes are by submission, and I've never really seen a submission game all that much in like the UFC or even in some of his other fights. Like I saw his fight against Santos, and in that fight it was like like the grappling was average in my opinion. And like his power hasn't really looked all that great to me either. So maybe going contrarian, trying to go over or Brenner by decision, is maybe an angle that that you could take,
Maybe
and
the
that'll be
Brazilian
plus money.
Brazilians have some respect for each other too, and he's like, "Ah, this guy took a short notice fight." You know,
Totally.
and yeah, the shot that hurt the knocked out Guram was kinda like a weird punch.
It hit him in like the ear, like in the jaw,
Yeah, it
like
was
the
just like a
like
bad spot. I mean, although I gotta give Brenner credit, like, the fact that he was down 2-0, he was bloodied, his hair was fucking dyed an entirely different color, and he came back to win that shit in round 3 knockout, that was pretty gangster, so, um, I think it's a decent late notice replacement fight for, less than a week. Still, hearts are ripped out from the Ribovix one. We're on to the main card here, 6-fight main card. We're starting things off in the lightweight division. Ismail Bonfim taking on Vince Pichel. Odds for this one have Ismail minus 500, Vince plus 375. So, any thoughts on this one? Kind of a prospect versus veteran matchup here.
it is, big number here on the is he younger? He's older Bonfim, right? Yeah, I think he's
Yeah.
older. Yeah, big price on older Bonfim here. Um, I'm I'm a little like slightly interested in Vince Pichel a bit. Just because I feel that maybe obviously that Marco Madsen fight is just completely different. Obviously I didn't think that he looked good in that fight, but Marco Madsen was like looking to take him down, and I feel like he was just not all there. I don't know what was going on with him there, but he's had a layoff. He's got this kid in front of him who is, mildly experienced, but is probably not going to look to take him down. It's probably not going to even look to like be at range and poking at him. He's going to be throwing in power shots, from what I know from Bonfim. And I just feel Vince Pichel, experienced guy. He's old as fuck, but he's never really shown that bad of a chin. He hasn't really shown a bad ground game. His wrestling, I think, should hold up. I think he just needs to weather an early storm because Bonfim, obviously, he likes he throws high flying knees. He throws big power shots, like I was saying. Um, but I'm actually thinking that Vince Pichel might have a shot in this fight. But I do. This is another fight that I do kind of like maybe the over, even though it's only pick 'em over the goes at distance. Because like I said, he Vince hasn't shown that bad of a chin, and Bonfim, I don't think he's that accurate with his hands. So yeah, that's just my opinion on the fight there.
Yeah, this is I think a good matchup. Pichel coming off a year and a half layoff. And they're sending him down to Brazil. They're kind of giving him a tough task here. But Vince, as a career, I think good fighter. What is he? 8-3 in the UFC career wise. 7-3. Only losses: Gregor Gillespie, Rustam Habibov, and Mark Madsen. So three stud grapplers. I don't think I think he's had a really good career overall, and he's just experienced in all areas of the fight. I think the guy is a pretty skilled striker. He can kick the legs, he can box pretty well, and then his takedown and defensive grappling instincts are straight up good. I mean, the guy knows his way around wrestling positions, knows how to get up once taken down, knows how to defend a submission pretty well. So I think the only way you could possibly look to play this one is going the over. The money line, it is wide, man. It is enticing, but this is also kind of reminding me of the Drew Dober versus Rick Glenn fight from a few weeks back, where Rick Glenn was a good fighter, had a good career, but he is getting old and getting past it. And now Vince, in his last fight, looking fairly old, slow, his legs just not moving as good as they did. Looking at some pictures of him this week, not looking too fresh. He's 40 now, turning 41 later this month, coming off a year and a half layoff. So there's just not a lot of good signs from Pichel here. And Bonfim, rewatching some footage of him, man, the guy is offensively potent. He digs to the body really well. He's got really good boxing. And I think you're better off just waiting for a live bet here. I think also a good angle here, I think, could be Bonfim KO1. I think the odds just dropped on this one earlier today on FanDuel. I saw a plus 500 on FanDuel or on Bet Online. I would like to see it get a little bit higher than that on FanDuel, let's say, oh, it's only 300 there, and that's no good. So I'm just thinking if Bonfim comes out and he's throwing big punches like he typically does, and if Vince is looking old and looking 40, looking like he's coming off a year layoff, the speed might be too much, and Bonfim might just knock him out in the first round. So if you can get Bonfim KO1 at 5, 6 to 1, I think that's worth a poke. And then just maybe look to play this one live. If Vince is hanging in there, if he's making a tough fight, that could be a good stab because we haven't seen Bonfim go too late in fights. And when he did go late in the fight on the Contender Series, he beat the shit out of that guy in the first couple rounds, Abasov. But then in the last couple of rounds, he kind of took his foot off the gas and he kind of cruised a little bit. So, um, I'm looking to pass from the money line, maybe look to get some of that Bonfim KO1 to parlay his upside here. So good matchup there. Moving on to the middleweight division, premier division in the UFC. Rodolfo Vieira taking on Petrosyan. Odds for this one have near pick'em -115 for Vieira, Petrosyan -105. So the line was flipped at one point. Vieira was the dog. I got in at 1 unit on him at plus money. And I just think he's the side at that price. Obviously this is a very clear striker versus grappler fight. But on the feet, I don't think Vieira is out of his depth as much as it is vice versa if the fight gets to the floor. Because Petrosyan, he's a volume striker. I know he has some knockouts, but if you've seen his UFC fights, you can clearly tell that he is not looking to really sit down on his shots. He's looking to jab and to kick and to throw 50 to 70% power on all of his shots, and he's looking to outstrike you to a decision. So if the fight's staying on the feet, I don't think Vieira is in like grave danger of being knocked out. We've seen his chin get tested. We've seen him get dropped. Cody Brundage dropping him. That was a bad look. But I think he is durable and he is hard to put away. So I don't think that Petrosyan's going to knock him out on the feet here, and that means that Vieira is just going to have more opportunities to get the takedown. And once he gets that takedown, Petrosyan's takedown defense has looked bad. His grappling defense has looked bad. He's given up his back. He has not escaped getting his back taken. And I think you just got to look at the Caio Borralho fight. And, I think that as of right now, I think Caio is a better fighter than Vieira. But Caio looked -6, 900 in that fight. I mean, he dominated almost every second of that fight. And even when Petrosyan was able to escape, he was able to get off of the ground. He was able to stand back up. What did he do? He threw some pedestrian little poking strikes at him. He didn't push a pace. And then he got taken down right away again. So I just think that Petrosyan, we have seen this type of matchup from him right against Caio in his, just a couple fights ago, and he looked horrible in that fight. And I think Vieira has the game plan, laid out here. Just take this guy down, take his back. You don't have to chase the sub, just hold the back take, hold the body triangle, and Arman can't escape it. So I think Vieira has looked steadily improved uh, over his career. The guy's, clearly getting serious about training. And I think that he's going to win this fight with just getting takedowns and grinding Petrosyan out. So I like Vieira, even at this price, -115. I cap Vieira closer to 60% here. So I like Rodolfo pretty confidently here. What about you?
God, I hope so. The black belt hunter, one of my favorite guys when he was doing jujitsu, he was just amazing, on amazing steroids and just a absolute hammer. It was just awesome to see him wreck, the gi divisions
Plus
primarily.
1,000 to win the ADCC, right? Remember you?
Something
Oh,
like yeah, it was something like that. It was no the
field.
big the big thing was it was the world it was the gi worlds it was the gi worlds
Uh,
1 year because he was moving up a weight class. So this is on Bookmaker, and I think Nick Kalikas actually told me that he was the one setting these odds. So we had a good laugh about it. But yeah, he was just moving up weight classes from like heavyweight to like super heavy, ultra heavy, some shit like that. And he was not listed. And I bet the field at 10 to 1, and oof, that was a good win, dude. It was easy. So yeah, so now
Shout
he's
out to Nick
here.
Kalikas. He's a real one.
Shout out, yeah. Shout out, he's a man. Um, so Adolfo, love him here. I also entered in on him at plus money. And I just feel that he, like you said, he is a little bit more well-rounded than people give him credit for. He had that experience in fighting Chris Curtis, where it was a lot of stand-up. It was a good fight for him, and you need those kinds of fights where you're fighting guys that are pretty good, that are giving you a little bit of a hard time in terms of getting your style working. But for you to know that you can go from striking to grappling and grappling to striking and do all those things in a high-paced cage fight where we're going to have the little bit of a bigger cage here, home field advantage for Hidolfo. He does live in Florida, but still home field advantage here. And like you said, once he does get on top, it's different from Kyle. Kyle is also a very, very high level grappler, but Hidolfo is probably one of the strongest humans that can make 185 pounds in the world. And if he gets on top of him in like a half guard position or something like that, I think he should definitely be able to choke this guy out. So we'll see. I do think that Armin, could pose, excuse me, a few threats overall because he does have such a diverse like selection of strikes, right? He throws good kicks, good punches, and if he does combo him up, I guess it could be effective. But I do feel Hidolfo is pretty durable, dude. Unless you're hitting him incredibly clean, I think it's gonna be pretty hard to put him out. So hopefully he doesn't need to expend too much energy. We get this guy down, we choke him out early at some point. What would be disappointing is him jumping for early submission. So maybe not no arm bars on this guy. Let's look for the chokes for sure and look to keep the positions. Us jiu-jitsu guys, we love arm bars. But I don't want like another thing of like Fluffy happens where he went for like the armbar, I think from Mount at least once, maybe twice, and gave up position. Probably not gonna be a problem here because Armin. This is the thing. Armin came up fighting a lot of these Russians, a lot of these other year in the European thing where like the guys honestly don't really have that developed of a ground game overall. And he just gave up a lot of opportunities. So I think Hidolfo is still a solid bet, like you said. I would probably cut it off at minus 130. And but yeah, let's go Hidolfo.
Nice, same page there. So we're gonna move on to a guy we were just talking about, also in the Premier Division. Kyle Bohayo taking on Abus Magomedov. Odds to this one have Kyle as the favorite, minus 300, Abus plus 250. Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, cool fight here. Abus. I honestly thought Abus was gonna be gone for a while. I didn't think I was gonna see this guy for at least until 2024. But I guess he went back to ETT, went back to the drawing board. Generational wealth opportunity available last time when he fought Sean Strickland. Unfortunately, we didn't, hammer that fight for 5 units. But yeah, I think here, Kyle, he just has that like southpaw stance where he's very comfortable. Like I said, with like Zaleski, he's comfortable if you coming forward on him. He's shown that blast double leg, that could come at a moment's notice. He throws, decent strikes, but he like just keeps his hands up and he looks to chip away at you. And his primary goal is to get the fight eventually to the ground. So I think eventually he will do that with Abus. But I do feel that sometimes like he's not respecting the striking of some of the guys. Like he looks at like parry, a lot of punches, which I think could get you in trouble, sometimes. And but I just not really that high on Abus. I think he could maybe catch that big ass chin of this guy with that little front kick that front kick that he kicked Dustin Solstice. Like he could maybe find the chin of Kyle, but Kyle's very defensively minded. And I think eventually he's gonna, even if he needs to pull guard, dude, I think he'll do that, dude. Do that as well. So I think this fight hits the ground and Kyle eventually sweeps him or passes his guard and looks to get a finish here. But I wouldn't lay Jude. I'm not like there's not a lot of angles I like in terms of betting on the fight. I was thinking about playing the under, but I don't want it to happen on another Kyle Bahayo fight where he's just holding the body triangle and not looking for the finish. But honestly, I do think that he's gonna try to sell out for a submission if he does get this to the ground.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think that Abus is just no good, man. I really think that last fight was incredible, man. I mean, arguably one of the worst main event performances ever. I mean, something like Grant
That
Dawson.
first round, he did good, dude. Come on,
Yeah,
he won the first round.
that's true. But the fact that he was completely gassed out 4 minutes in was just like insane. Like it's like the guy didn't even know that the fight was 5 minute rounds. So that was pretty pathetic. I mean, it's Strickland in the interview. He's like, "Man, I thought this guy was gonna slow down," but like he was like 6 minutes in. He's like, "Is this guy already done?" He's like, "Is this already the worst of it?"
This is what we're
So
talking about. Will to win. Like you saw that Abus After that round one, he was like, "Holy shit!
It's like
Like,
pack the
there's
bag.
no
Like,
way I can win." Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So Kyle, I think is just gonna easily take him down, backpack him. I mentioned I parlayed some guys earlier, but honestly, Kyle, I probably should have thrown in there too. This guy, is safe. I think he will get the easy takedowns to back take, and I'm going with the sub here. I got some sub plus 230, I think, and then add some sub 2-3 plus 550. And I think that Abus is just probably going to find a way to give up the back and get choked. I just Bohio will get his way to the back. He's very crafty at getting those back takes. And I think after, a few minutes of getting control and squeeze, I think Magomedov is just gonna, find a way to get out of the fight, just like he did in the Strickland fight. So I'm going Caio sub 2. Next fight
Yeah.
is a heavyweight fight, a rematch, heavily anticipated rematch. People all over the world talking about this one. The first fight was so good. They're like, I can't wait to see this one play out. And some guys who like, iterations and, you know, what's the other word that we say for iterations or something? Anyway,
Permutations,
permutations, there you go.
Yeah.
We might get to see this fight another 8 times and get to see, 10 times and really see who the real hindsight favorite is. But we have Rodrigo Nascimento, Dontel Mayes, odds for this one, Nascimento minus 200, Mayes plus 170. First fight, Nascimento closed minus 130. It was 3.5 years ago, and Nascimento won rear naked choke round 2, 7 minutes in. And I see no reason to think the fight will go differently. I think out of the two of them, Nascimento is actually the one getting better. And I think that Mays is probably getting a little too much respect coming off the Arlovsky win. They're thinking, oh, he beat Arlovsky. He must be legit. But if you guys are paying attention, Arlovsky is kind of phoning it in at this point. And Nascimento coming off of 2 respectable wins. Bosser and Latifi, they were both close. I think he probably did deserve to win both of them, though. And I think the guy training ATT, just getting better. I think that the grappling gulf is just too big here, man. I think that if Nascimento gets on top, he will have another path to finish the fight either by GMP or TK or sub. And I think same strategy as the last fight. I'm going sub anytime and sub 2-3 for a little bit of a cherry on top for Nascimento here. So I like sub is 240, sub 2-3 is I think 550, 600. So I like some stabs on that. Any odds for you here you like?
Yeah, no, not really, honestly. Very fair. I feel everybody, but man, I just can't lay juice on Nascimento, dude. I can't do it because although he's another guy, I like it when guys fight to their strengths, and I like grapplers at heavyweight, right? Which we're about to get into again coming up here. But the guy's just very easy to hit. We're in the bigger cage here. My boy Lord Kong is. You saw he already broke John Jones. So what is he gonna like when he gets that overhook on Nasi? What is Nascimento gonna do? Is he gonna pull guard? If he has to pull guard, it's probably the best option, honestly, because Dontel Mays is he looks like the Hamdi fight. I can't get it out of my head, but I also just can't. Man, that was bad. But I also just can't with Nascimento because Nascimento, he's just so He's a prototypical jiu-jitsu guy because he's like he's clumsy a little bit,
Funky,
but
that's the
like
word.
clumsy and clunky, but he knows like the position. Like he's a very repetitive guy. So like if he could get to his positions, like he's practiced a lot, it'll probably go good for him. And Lord Kong is probably gonna get choked out. But if not, I just feel that Lord Kong, he with those MMA angles. We saw MMA angles last week. Those MMA angles that they're working on with John Jones over there. I just think that he could find Nascimento's shin, honestly. So I kind of want to just say this fight's just not going to go the distance. Obviously, it's not. I don't think that's a hot take. The what's the under 2.5 or not goes the distance is
It's only minus
minus
160.
160. That's what I'm saying. So I might play that honestly if I could, shop around, probably get a little bit of a better price because I feel that Nascimento could definitely get knocked out here, dude. Like especially if he has some grappling success and then kind of like is like just tired. You know what I mean? I feel that he could just get
Mays, though,
nuked.
his power is bad, man. He does not hit
But
hard.
yeah, Nascimento's shin is bad though. But yeah, no, I feel you. But I just think that later in the fight, like which fight was it? Was it the Bozzer fight or was it the Latifi fight where he needed like a takedown in the third round? It was a
I
Bozzer fight, I think.
I thought it was oh, yeah, it might have been both, honestly.
It might have been both, yeah. But I just thought he was pretty tired in that Bowser fight. And if there was a guy that was a little bit more athletic, a little bigger, like Kong is both, it could have given him a issue there. So, I'm not on a Nascimento train. I think I might just try to play the under though, or the not goes the distance. I mean,
Fair enough. That's going to take us to the co-main event. We got the younger Bonfim, Gabriel Bonfim, taking on Nicholas Dalby in the welterweight division. Bonfim minus 650, Dalby plus 475. Any faith in the old veteran here? 38 years old, Nicholas Dalby. Any faith in him?
I'm wondering how long Nicholas Zelby has been down there in Brazil, because he's gonna have to be fighting the sun and the UV rays
Mm.
first, because we know he likes to get naked, close to bodies of water. So I hope he brought some sunscreen and he can make it to the fight. No sunburn on this man. But I don't
Our
have too
boy,
much
our
faith,
boy Chad loves that picture of Dalby's ass. I mean, he's got
dude.
it like
That
fucking
I think that's his screensaver, dude.
for sure.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't have that much faith in him. But he's gonna look to extend the fight. He's gonna be looking to circle around and take this guy into deep water is what I would think the game plan is gonna be. He could fight from both stances, which I like. But I just don't feel that he's got really the style really that is gonna give Bonfim that much of a problem when they are engaging with each other. Bonfim, I think that he just pretty crafty overall in terms of the grappling sequences that he goes for. I feel like they're pretty elaborate in terms of I don't know if Dolby's gonna be able to keep up with him. So I honestly think he's gonna probably get submitted here, but obviously plus 125. I'm not giving you a crazy winner, but maybe Bonfim by second round submission plus 600, not too bad. Um, but yeah, these kinds of matchups, I'm not really too much of a fan of trying to catch the dog. I'm more interested honestly in the other one, the older Bonfim against Pichel, just because Dolby he doesn't really have a lot of punching power.
None.
He has no punching power. And then even the fights that he's gone the distance, like that he's won the decisions, like I've been like, wow, if he gets hit with a clean shot, I feel like he could like if Worley Alves just could have found one good strike there, I thought he could have maybe stunned him and stuff like that. But I don't like Nicholas Dolby overall as a fighter.
Yeah, I mean, this one's tough because Bonfim I think is still fairly inexperienced. I know he has 15 fights, but a lot of those wins are in the first round. I mean, if you look at his record, his past 4 fights are all round 1 finishes. And then if you look at his 5th fight, it's round 3, but if you watch that fight, they're actually 3-minute rounds, and he finished it 38 seconds into the 3rd round. So that fight was 6.5 minutes long. Um, and then he hasn't gone in, round 2, he went 2019, 7.5 minutes. So what I'm trying to say is the guy has not been in late fights very much at all. Also, that fight, that 3-round fight, the 3-minute round fight, Brenner Alberth, he gets dropped with a kind of a weak punch and looks kind of bad in round 2 of that fight. He does come out in round 3 and smoke him pretty quickly, but did get dropped in that fight. Not too relevant here because, like we mentioned, Dalby has no power. But I feel his past few fights, these guys have been just giving him the win. Lizez fucking just giving his neck out there. Giles gets taken down. What, this guy's got a nasty guillotine. Let me try to fucking get up, get on my knees, and just stick my neck right out there. He snatched that neck. So obviously the guy's got, some good chokes. But you got to wonder if this fight stays standing and it gets extended. And for some reason, if Dalby can keep the fight standing, I don't think that Gabriel's gonna be looking minus 650 if it stays a kickboxing fight because Dalby, even though he's not, the most skilled guy, I think he always comes in good shape. That's the one thing you can always rely on is the guy has cardio to go the full 15 and he just grinds fights out. He's been a big dog in his career before and he's found a way to grind out a victory, most notably the Rodriguez fight. Some people mentioned that he's never been finished. He actually has been finished. Jesse Ronson dropped him with a punch, choked him out in that fight. Um, so Man, I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna fully say that I'm betting Dalby here, but I'm gonna be watching the fight closely from a live betting perspective. And I think that Dalby round three, the odds are like 30-1 or something like that. For a guy, Dalby's been in round three a bunch of times lately. He's reliable to win round three. Um, and I think you're talking about a guy who hasn't been in round three in 5 years in a Bonfim. So we've seen it time and time again. These guys are finishing guys left and right, and they get extended. They go late in the fight, and their cardio just isn't there. So that is a possibility here. Dalby also flew to Brazil and beat Warley Alves earlier this year. So he's been in this role before, playing the role of spoiler. He is 38 years old, so it will be a tall task. I think 13-year age difference between these two guys. So um, not a bad litmus test for Bonfim though. Hopefully Dalby can
Good,
give us
yeah,
some more.
good test for him. And his what is this? His third UFC or second,
Yeah,
third,
3rd, yeah. I just
third?
wanna
Yeah.
see him test that a little bit more than what we've seen so far because we've seen him 2 fights so far, 2 one-minute guillotines, so hopefully we get some more information on the guy. So, um, that's gonna take us to the main event on the card. Jailton Almeida taking on Derrick Lewis was supposed to be Curtis Blades, would have been a much more intriguing fight, but we got Jailton -550, Derrick Lewis +400. So, I mean, I really haven't given this fight any thought, honestly. It's a very, binary matchup. Um, but I mean, I'll go Derek Lewis or a pass, man. I mean, Jailton, when he's on the feet, he's very predictable. He really doesn't have any striking to set up his takedowns. He kind of just explodes his way into the takedowns. And Derek Lewis, can work his way back up to the feet. If you don't get him in like a dominant position right away, we saw Sergey Spivak, have to drag him down 3, 4, 5 times before he finally got him. And I feel like Jailton's wrestling is not as good as Spivak, a guy who can like control the wrist and drag you back down over and over again. So I don't know, man. I think I would definitely be cheering for Derek Lewis. I mean, if he can fly into Brazil on short notice as a 400 underdog and knock out Almeida, who's on this big unbeaten streak, that would be fucking amazing. And it would just be so on par for Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis's record against Brazilians has got to be pretty damn good too, if I had to guess. Um, Man, maybe not. Lost to JDS, beat Dalima in his last fight. Um, all right, that's about enough for me. I mean, yeah, it's a very obvious fight. You have any thoughts from a betting perspective here?
I'm always interested to see how much Jailton weighs. I'm always interested to see if he's gonna get on the Vitor Petrino, diet as well. But the guy is, I mean, you see this in a lot of grappling competitions, like in jujitsu, in college wrestling. Maybe not as much freestyle because those guys are like actually professionals, but like in college wrestling, the heavyweight weight class is always like the least technical weight class, where if there's a guy who, he even if he's smaller, if he's just, if he's got like a high motor, if he's like a little bit more technical, if he's been training, whatever it is, they end up having success a lot of times. You even see sometimes like a guy, he'll be like 180, 185, and these guys will enter like the 220 plus divisions, and they'll win them because like the guys at heavyweight, they're kind of a little bit less skilled, they're like slower, stuff like that. And that's why I think Jailton is going to continue to have some success here at heavyweight. On the feet, obviously, I mean, Derek Lewis has absolute lunch boxes for fists, dude. So you got to avoid those a little bit. I saw him get knocked out clean in that. I saw a clip of him getting knocked out clean in that one fight that he lost. And obviously he's going against the biggest knockout artist ever. But the thing is, here is I just feel that Jailton, he's definitely gonna get some kind of takedown. I feel, and if he does, when he does, he's just gonna get to either mount or that back mount, and I think look to get like quickly develop to a finish. But there's no way I would like to lay juice on him. Like I think there could be a potential. Like there is a potential that, let's say he shoots a takedown on him, and whatever, maybe he slips, maybe he thinks, oh man, it's cool, I'm gonna pull this guy on top of me, and then I'm gonna get an underhook, and I'm gonna just slide out around them, and and I'm gonna tell you, that's a bad idea, Jailton. Do not go on your back against Derek Lewis. I watched back those two strikes that he landed on Curtis Blades have to be the two strongest ground and pound strikes that have ever been landed on anyone. If you told me Curtis Blades was dead, I would totally believe you. Like, I would not be surprised in the slightest bit. So I think, at range, Jailton's just pretty quick. He has great agility. He throws that little, that hoist greasy little kick, right? And stuff like that. But I think Derrick Lewis is gonna be prepared, dude. Derrick Lewis is still looking float. He's looking, slim. And I'm rooting for Derrick Lewis. I hope he knocks Jailton Almeida the fuck out. Just because he's Derrick Lewis, not because I dislike Jailton Almeida. Obviously, I'm all for jujitsu. But yeah, not that much to analyze here. It's a striker versus grappler, but it turns out to be like the best grappler at heavyweight in terms of jujitsu versus the guy who's got the most power ever. So I'm intrigued. This is like a low key freak show fight. Not really, but I like this fight. So let's see what happens.
And then if Jailton wins, do you see it being by sub or by
Submission, definitely. I mean, I saw that was minus 110. I think it still minus 125, or did it go higher?
Yeah, I'm sure it is some books.
Yeah. So I saw it was minus 110 on Bet Online. I think it got bet, but yeah, I definitely think it's gonna be submission because when you open up, you start throwing you see like those stupid ground strikes that he throws, like that Donkey Kong shit, dude. That's not gonna work on Derrick Lewis. Derrick Lewis will push him the fuck off, like, you know what I mean. So if he gets on top of him, he should prioritize the submission, most definitely.
I think the way to play the fight is Jailton round 2, because you look at Parker Porter, took him 4.5 minutes, Anton Turkalij 4.5 minutes, Shamil 8 minutes, Rosenstrike almost 4 minutes. So you're getting plus 650 on round 2 when, like, it's not like he's immediately finishing the guys right away. Like Derrick Lewis, like, even like I said, the Spivak fight, he had to drag him down a bunch of times to finally get him out of there. So I think, you're getting I think he definitely could finish the fight in round 2 1 out of 6 times or something. So 650 on round 2 for Jailton, that's the bet on the fight for me. Just hope Derrick can cling on. All right, I got my FMK bets for you. Locked
Holy
and
shit.
loaded. Locked and loaded. We got the Brazilian submission special. Okay. We're
Mm,
going number 1, Rodolfo Vieira submission plus 200. Number
okay.
2, Rodrigo Nascimento submission plus 240. Number
Mm,
3, Caio Barralho sub plus 230. So very
ooh.
closely lined. 200 for Vieira, 240 for Nascimento, 230 for Caio.
FMK, the Brazilians. Okay. So right off the bat, I'm gonna fuck the Caio Barralho submission line, because Caio Barralho, I don't know, for you guys that didn't hear, Money Moicano, he said that he put threw the man under the bus and ran him over. He was like, I saw this guy training at ATT. His ground game sucks. He's not good. So I'm gonna trust my boy Money Moicano's opinion on that one, and I'm gonna fuck that, that submission line for Caio Barralho, that amazing chin. I'm gonna marry my boy Rodolfo Vieira. Rodolfo Vieira frequents Orlando, Florida, similar to me. I think we could have a great wedding down there. So I'm gonna marry that submission line. We're gonna
Disney
bring it
adults.
home. And was that
Disney adults.
exactly Disney adults? We're gonna, yeah, that'll be the honeymoon. And then I'm gonna kill, like I said, Rodrigo Nascimento. I just feel that you saw the power of Kong when John Jones locked up with him. He's working on his grappling. It could not come to fruition here in terms of submission. So I'm gonna kill that one. All right. Martian. All right, let's come
Let's
back
hear
to
it.
you with something a little bit more normal. I mean, honestly, this is not the best week for FMK on these. It's not that much variety here. So number 1, Martian, I'm gonna give you Angela Hill on the money line at plus 124. All right,
Mm.
the tried and true veteran. All right. Number 2, I'm gonna give you the over in that Zaleski versus Hinat fight minus 120. And then lastly, we'll go with, for you, Rodrigo Nascimento minus 200. You saw that permutation the first time. Do you think that permutation is
Mm.
enough for you to fuck or marry? What do you think?
Okay. I'm gonna have to go. All right. The most recent one you said, I have to kill it. Nasi minus 200. I think he does get it home, but heavyweights at minus 200, I got to kill that one. The other two, I like him better. Now everyone's wondering, are you gonna fuck or marry Angela Hill? And I'm gonna treat her like the queen that she is, and I'm gonna marry her.
Yes.
I'm gonna marry her. I'm talking like treating her right through sickness and health, foot rubs. She has a white boyfriend right now, so
Nice.
I'm in there.
I know
That
some
leaves
guys that used to train with her, so we could definitely make this happen.
Yeah, she is getting pretty close to the end of her childbearing years, though, so I'm gonna have to make quick work of her. Anyway, that leads me to fuck the over 2.5 in the Renat versus ZDS fight. Not looking forward to fucking either of those guys. Especially the winner, Renat, is definitely the uglier one of the two. So that's not going to be an enjoyable one. But yeah, I think a lay and pray clinic from Renat is fairly in play there. So that is going to do it.
Lovely.
Anything else going on this weekend? We got daylight savings time.
Daylight savings time. Don't forget that. No, what else we got going on this week? We got MSG next week. Podcast will be dropping early because I will be out of the country. And yeah, that's about it.
Big week of football. Eagles, Cowboys.
Oh, yes. Yeah, my Giants, we got QB1 back. Hopefully Anthony Thomas is back. We're gonna make that playoff run, bro. That 7th seed is wide open. I'm joking, but I'm actually watching that game, the Eagles Cowboys game, with the Cowboys fan that in my life, like the biggest Cowboys fan in my personal life. So I'm indifferent, honestly, because I hate both teams. I'm rooting for a tie.
Right. I bet that guy's a real sorry son of a bitch if I have to be honest. But all right, that'll do it for this week. Good to be back after a week off. We're gonna be back in Brazil. Hope everyone enjoys the fights, win some bets. We'll see you all before UFC Madison Square Garden pay-per-view next week. Peace out, everyone.
Later.